I had this image of this woman coming at me with like, a wooden stick, whatever you want to call it. Coming for trouble, coming to be against me, coming to cause pain for no reason, coming to disrespect. That's the image I had of Becky, like, some war hero coming for war. Well, then all of a sudden, God showed me how miserable she was, even with herself, while she was doing whatever it is she was doing.
Right.
And then he didn't just show me that she was miserable with herself, but he showed me what was really going on in her when I thought we were having this battle. Really what was going on in her is she's like a little 3-year-old girl sitting in the corner crying, scared, alone, afraid, and not knowing what to do. Mm-hmm. It's like a cat. If a cat gets hit by a car and the cat's dying, what kind of behavior do you see come out of that cat? You ever seen it? They'll attack their owner, who's loved them their whole life, who they never dream of attacking. Now, we're going to hold that against the cat? That's how it is when a person's in bondage to death. It's like they can't see anything. And so when you could see Becky, when I could see Becky that way, it wasn't just that I saw she wasn't doing what I thought she was doing. I could see that she was even miserable and condemning herself and ashamed of what she was doing. I hate to break it to everybody, but if we think those guys in ISIS, when they're alone, by themselves, with their thoughts, if we think that deep down their heart isn't condemning them, we don't understand the human heart.
Wow.
We don't.
And they're afraid.
They're afraid. They're in death, just like the cat who got run over, and now it's clawing, fighting, scratching, trying to find life. This is what they think equals life. Those guys, man, they're not sitting in their hearts. I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah.
When they're alone by themselves, their heart is condemning them. They know that death that they're in is not as it ought to be.
Right. Yeah. I think that was the hardest thing out of the whole message that you said, at least for me, and I'm still processing it, and that was that people who hurt us only ever wanted to love us and be good to us. To me, that was the hardest part of that whole message. It all makes sense. That one is just hard for me to process.
Yeah.
And I understand why, but it just...
And the thing is, we don't process it from our feelings. That's why I went through so much doctrine. Mm-hmm. We process it through that doctrine that I gave.
Yeah.
And so we don't try to convince ourselves to believe it, but we look at the doctrine and say, does the doctrine teach what he said?
Exactly.
If it does, then that's what will cause your heart to give it up. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes if we try to will ourselves to accept it, that's not going to happen. But if we keep going back and looking at the teaching, and then letting that teaching persuade us, that teaching will persuade us. And it is a hard thing to do, because when we see death and suffering, we're hurt by that.
Yeah.
And then if we think it's at the hands of these people, it's very difficult for us to now believe those people wanted to do good. Yeah. But then, what is it that Paul said then? And that's where we're left with.
Yes.
Romans 7. Then what is it Paul said in Romans 7?
I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I want to do.
Right? Yeah. What is he saying there?
Oh, wretched man that I am.
What's he saying there?
He said he has no control over what he is doing.
And then what does he say?
Who will set me free?
Not even me.
It's not even me.
Who said?
Right.
And how did he say he knew it wasn't him? Because in his mind and in his heart, he was doing things that were contrary to what he wanted to do in his heart. Mm-hmm. But when he was under the law, don't you think it looked like he wanted to kill all those people?
Sure. It looked like it.
Well, how could he then say what he said in Romans 7 if it didn't bother him?
That you blew me away with that one.